Hello, all you folks out there in YouTube land. You'll forgive my state of dress, but this came to my attention out of the blue and needs to be addressed sooner rather than later. On Thursday, September the 25th, 2014, a man was dismissed from his position at a food processing company in Moore, Oklahoma. He drove from the place he worked to another part of the complex and using a knife common to the company's operations, beheaded one person and severely wounded another before being shot by the company's president and chief operating officer. This is a fairly dry retelling of events, and taken by itself occasions comment only insofar as to the manner of death of the first victim. Nothing else here is the slightest bit unusual as far as the average workaday murderous rampage goes. Those are the things that everyone seems to agree on. There are some other things that are generally accepted, and still more that are either currently being speculated upon or are nearly guaranteed to crop up in the near future. 3 things about this particular incident make it different from the above. First, the perpetrator is a dark-skinned male that was known to have converted to Islam during his most recent trip to prison, which ended about 18 months prior to his rampage. Most sources state that this man, one Alton Nolen, had been trying to convert his co-workers in the week or so before his firing on September the 25th. Second, both of his victims were female. The general consensus is they were both targets of opportunity, present in the path he was taking to get to whomever he thought was responsible for his newly acquired lack of employment. This should be obvious from his actions, but it needs to be said, because someone out there is going to use this to forward their misogyny narrative, and that needs to be nipped in the bud. If this company is like most others, they tell you to go pick up your paperwork at the administration office before you leave the property, as well as turn in things like your company ID card, keys, parking pass, etc. This one appears to have gone over there and attacked the office staff. Who they are exactly is something I don't know for certain, but it was reported that Nolen knew neither of his victims. My supposition that he was sent to administration to turn in his issue gear is upheld by the presence of the president of the company, who then wounded him with a couple of chunks of lead traveling at supersonic velocities. Both Nolen and his second victim are expected to survive. I expect that it will be a long time indeed before Nolen sees the outside of a correctional facility. Last, there is speculation that he was a terrorist. There is no evidence to suggest this, aside from Nolen's status as a Muslim. A spokescreator for the local Muslims stated that they were stepping up security at the mosque for the people that gather in expectation of anti-Muslim violence. Yes, this is an action I would expect them to take, but not broadcast. I would have expected them to offer condolences to the families, perhaps, or deny he was one of their. He did neither of those things. It would have reflected better on them if they had at least given the appearance of caring about the victims. I said initially that this looked like a standard issue murder spree cut short by an armed reserve deputy sheriff that just happens to be running the company. That's because aside from the manner of death of the first victim, it is, yes, the crime is one of those horrific things you read in schlock horror novels, and it must be devastating to the family of the woman who died. The one that survived the initial attack will have deep psychological trauma for quite a while. While my heart goes out to those people, I have to deal with the camera and tell some people that this wasn't about race, religion, sex, or anything else. This was a very angry man that did something ugly when his already crap day went completely to shit. There is no bigotry here of any sort. There is a little boy throwing a temper tantrum and doing something he most definitely should not have. There was no way to predict this behavior, nor the deranged mental state that must have caused this. This is not someone that got up in the morning and said, I think I'll get fired and behead the receptionist. This is someone that was a year and a half out of prison for drug offenses and beating up a police officer. This is someone that should have been escorted to administration to pick up his unemployment slip, turn in his things, and then off the property. The only person at fault here is the perpetrator and his lack of impulse control. Feminists, psychotic Christians, and news media, all a favor, and let this thing die quickly. Remind us in a year or 3 when you convict him and send him forth to suck cyanide. This week's Monday Malignancy video is going to take a pass on the flat earthers, and start a 5-week series on some of the really deranged woo that's running around on the internet. I'll post a short video next week with a final list of things to be covered, so the opposition can get ready with their rebuttals ahead of time. Until then, have a lovely weekend, and if you see people yammering on about racism and misogyny, point them to this video. If you want, and they are being public about it, message me with a link or 6, and I'll make a follow-up video with a detailed response to them.